Revenge films.
My name is Rua Kale, and I gave birth to my daughter when I was 23. My husband is 3 years older than I am. He was raised in a very strict house, and because he was so abused, he ran out of his house at the age of 18 and lived in a dorm. But because of this, he was too soft on our daughter. Perhaps it wasn't his fault, but it was so bad my daughter ignored what I had to say to her. Things like, you can't stand on your seat while eating, or you can't run around the hospital. Very normal things I would say to her. He would get in the way. You can't take toys from other kids. You have to ask them for permission. And if they give it to you, you have to thank them. Things like that. But my husband would always say,
"She's still little and she doesn't know right from wrong. She'll learn everything from kindergarten, and the teachers will tell her things like that. So let's have her be free at home and do whatever she wants."
He would then take her away from me and tell her,
"When you're with us, you can do whatever you want, okay?"
And because of this, for example, if I tell her to sit down until she finished eating, my husband would say,
"You can do whatever you want."
and so she would get up from her seat, run around, eat, run around, eat, and he would allow that. I was so embarrassed. When she ran around the hospital screaming, he would watch her and say,
"Kids should be free like that. When I was her age."
and cover her for years. Yes, even I was okay with her being free when she could not understand what we were saying. But she is 4 years old now, and I don't think this is the best for her. I agree with you that she should be raised freely, but she's 4 years old now. If it's true that a child will build their personality until the age of 3, then we have to be the ones to tell her what's right and wrong, I said.
I don't agree with saying things like that. We have to take responsibility for our child. I don't want to be strict on our daughter and have her be raised like that. I don't want her to be raised like me.
And push me away from raising her. And of course, our daughter would always side with my husband. And when she got into elementary school, it all got much worse than I expected. She would constantly get in trouble and hit other kids and take things that were not hers. When things didn't go her way, she would start crying so loudly that she would stop the whole class, so that I was often called down to the school. When she was in 6th grade, she was arrested for stealing from a store. The employee was very kind and forgave us because it was her first time, but she was quiet the whole time. Even when we walked home and finally got home, she said nothing about what she had done. I scolded her, but she would whistle and look the other way and ignore me. I was so furious. I slapped her from all the stress. She ran straight to my husband and told him. He began to hit me multiple times and even kicked me while I was on the ground. My daughter stood there laughing, as if me lying on the ground in agony was funny. I had raised her in my own body, but from that day on, I didn't think of her as my child. Even my husband, I had completely lost all love and trust in him, and asked to get a divorce. I didn't need rights to my daughter too. My daughter looked so happy she would get to live with my ex-husband. And she said to me with a glare,
"Sucks for you."
My ex-husband didn't seem to care either. The divorce went too smoothly. After this, I had moved into the city and worked with my cousin, who owned a store. I met someone special who understood my situation, and we got married. The next year, I had another child, and I didn't know how much happiness I would feel to be able to raise a child with someone I trust. Thank God I got married again. It hurts to say this, but I had completely forgot my past family at this point. 10 years after my second marriage, my first daughter came back to me all of a sudden. She apparently searched through our old records. My ex-husband had passed away, and since he had signed off his inheritance and had debt to his name, so she needed my assistance to live. She had changed so much, I couldn't recognize her at first, and I honestly didn't want to think of her as my daughter. I saw bruises on her body too, which I knew instantly was from my ex-husband. You can come in.
Really?
I'd rather talk inside than at the door. I let her inside for a reason. My second daughter was very slim and fit because she did bar. And since my new husband was very well proportioned, her face was beautiful as well. I brought my first daughter to a picture of my second daughter and said, "This is my daughter." I didn't know this much difference could be seen from my two daughters. And what did you want? Did you really think you could be helped here looking like that? In front of this cute sister of yours?
I don't have money.
How about you start working if you don't have any money?
I can't keep a steady job. Please, I need money. Give it to me now.
What an attitude. Money? Yeah, sure.
Really?
Yeah, but before I do, don't you have a lot to say to me? Don't shut up. Say something. She glared at me with the same face and ran straight out the door. Why did she come here in the first place? Did she think we would hug and cry it out? Or that I would feel sorry for her and give her money? How pathetic. That would never happen in a million years. I gave up the rights to her. I didn't think of her anything more than a stranger. People may think that mothers will love their children under any circumstance, but I disagree. We are people too, and I was brutally disregarded by the people I loved before. I can't talk back to my ex-husband because he isn't here anymore, but what he was doing was not kindness, but abuse. He wasn't letting her be free. He ignored to raise her and teach her the right from wrong. And that's why he had made an untouchable monster. I hadn't heard from her since, but learned 6 months later that she had taken her own life. It came from my ex-husband's sister, who I had completely forgotten about. You had a divorce, but she is related to you by blood. Take care of her! But I had no idea what kind of people she was friends with, so I held no funeral for her. My ex-husband's remains were in the house as well, so I sent that over to be buried too. I talked to my current husband about it too, and he agreed with me about what needed to be done too. I learned at this point that there was one time my ex-husband came to him a long time ago to ask to borrow money from us. He scolded him and he ran away, which I thought was pretty funny. I didn't tell him my first daughter came to talk to me before she passed. I'm keeping that to the grave. My second daughter is a treasure to me. I don't get where this difference is coming from, but even if people yell at me, I'm glad that a big worry in my heart had finally been removed.
My name is Taylor Smith. I'm 35. I live with my husband, Hank. We got married 3 years ago. My husband is the eldest son, and my in-laws, Tom and Mary, are getting quite old. We were talking about getting a house close to theirs, with the intention that one day they'll be living with us, and so that we can go see them if anything were to happen. But before we got married,
let's put some space between our houses. If we're too close, we might feel too much pressure.
Mary made this suggestion. So we decided to move to a house that was 20 minutes drive away. I felt that she was so understanding, and I was happy that I was blessed with such a lovely mother-in-law. But after we got married, her attitude changed completely, and she began to make comments that lessened me and spread rumors in her neighborhood. When I went to visit my in-laws' house for Thanksgiving and New Year's, I caught sight of her outside of the house, gossiping about me to the neighbor loudly. It annoyed me to no end. The one that said we should live further apart was Mary, but she was
My daughter-in-law never comes to cook dinner. Does she not understand that we're family now?
making complaints. When I did try to make dinner,
Oh, this is horrible. The flavor's all wrong. How on earth were you brought up? I can't believe my poor little boy's being made to eat this. My poor little baby. This has too much salt. If you feed my son food like this, he'll become sick.
her comments were never ending. When I tried to help with the housework,
The way you fold clothes is too messy. You take too long to wash the dishes. You're so lucky to have a daughter-in-law like yours. My son's wife is no good at all.
and would say things that weren't true.
She started spouting verbal abuse at me. Can you believe it? She rejected our wish to live together. Why can't she do anything for her husband's family?
To her own husband and daughter, Kate. There are plenty of other things, like checking my clothes while I was having a bath.
It's because you're wearing clothes like these that my son doesn't feel like having children with you.
And lecturing me about my underwear when I got out. I had already told her that we were going to wait until we had conceived naturally, but she would go on at me about timing, my sex appeal, positions, about my being barren. I'm quite the headstrong type, so in the beginning I had been arguing back to her, but no matter what I said, she responded something nonsensical. It would drive me crazy, so I gave up saying anything at all. Because of the stress, my stomach had weakened, and I could no longer visit my in-laws' house. If there was something that had to be done, my husband would go by himself. My husband apologized to me, saying he was sorry I had to deal with so much, and blocked his mother's phone calls to my phone, making sure her phone calls would go through to him only. By the way, my father-in-law and my sister-in-law were also living with my mother-in-law, and my father-in-law would only say, "Sorry for all the trouble," and give me something to take home. My sister-in-law is working from home and is always in her own room, so I never had a proper conversation with her. She'd often be in a meeting with her headphones on, so it seemed she couldn't hear our conversations. One day, my husband heard that his father had collapsed, and because he couldn't get out of work, I ended up going to the hospital by myself. To be honest, it was the type of situation I'd usually avoid at all costs, but apparently it was serious, and thought I should go before my father-in-law's condition worsened. But when I arrived, it turned out that he would only be hospitalized for a day for test, and that his serious condition was just a lie, made up by my mother-in-law. On top of that, at that time, Tom wasn't in his own room, and the only one there was Mary, looking proud of herself. When I asked her, "Why did you go as far as lie to make me come here?"
Because you haven't been to visit at all recently. I'm surprised you can even live with yourself, abandoning us like that.
She made complaints, trying to pick a fight with me. She even dished out her usual full course of insults: barren, heartless child, and useless wife. She also insulted my own parents and friends, and my irritation had reached its peak. I lost my temper. Enough! How many times do I have to tell you? The reason why I won't get pregnant is because we're using contraceptives. And if anything, my husband's been praised by his doctor for improving his health since living with me. It makes me wonder how he was eating until now. He's not just your son anymore, he's my husband! And started to shriek all sorts of things at her. I know that I must have caused quite a disturbance, as it was a hospital, but my frustration had accumulated over the years, and I couldn't stop myself. Fortunately, it was a private room, and the door was closed, so it seemed my voice hadn't been heard from outside. However, my mother-in-law used this as a chance. She grabbed the folding chair that was nearby, and just when I wondered what she was going to do, she threw it at the wall and,
Stop, Taylor! Calm down!
started screeching by herself. "Mary?" I thought she must have lost her mind, and as I was watching her silently, she hit the wall with the chair.
Taylor, please!
Over
Taylor, no!
and over. Someone must have finally heard the noise because a few nurses came running to her room. But the second somebody knocked on the door, Mary had let go of the chair and rolled into a ball on the floor, shaking.
What's wrong?
My son's wife was shouting at me. She almost hit me with a chair.
With crocodile tears flowing down her face. At that moment, I thought I had lost the battle. After that, the police came to her room, and I was asked questions too. I haven't done anything, but Mary...
The truth is, I was recording the entire conversation.
And pulled a voice recorder out of her pocket. Apparently, my sister-in-law had said,
If she says something that horrible, you should record what she says and gather evidence.
and advised her to do it. However, it seemed she had been recording since I entered the hospital room, and it was clear that what she was saying wasn't going to match up with the content, so... That's perfect! Let's have the police decide who's correct. I offered my suggestion with confidence.
Then can we hear what you've recorded?
The police officer asked. Mary had learned from Kate how to record with the gadget, but hadn't learned how to play the recording yet. In the end, a young police officer played the recording for us. I thought that Mary deserved being shamed in front of the police officers, but just as I had predicted, she was proved wrong by her own recording. Furthermore, that voice recorder held recordings of other days, when my mother-in-law had insulted and verbally abused me.
What's this? Why has all this been recorded too? This isn't my voice.
Mary had tried to argue that it wasn't her voice, but there was no denying that it was. After hearing all the recordings, a young officer that could have been her grandson began to tell her off, as though he were talking to a child.
You shouldn't treat others how you wouldn't want to be treated. You understand, ma'am?
He chided her, very slowly. It was very hard to hold back my laughter. Mary could only say,
Yes, yes.
to everything he said. As for framing me for waving the chair around, it was hard to tell who had actually done it over the recording. So the police took fingerprints from the chair. Mary's fingerprints were lifted, and it was found out that she had been the one throwing the chair around. I was found innocent and let go. Mary was lucky enough that the hospital didn't press any charges, but instead they asked that she pay compensation to repair the hole in the wall that had been made. She was eventually let go of, but her husband, who was usually very forgiving, was unsurprisingly very angry. He didn't call for a divorce, but he did warn Mary that he wouldn't forgive her the next time something happened. I was really surprised to hear that my sister-in-law had said,
So, did the voice recording come in handy?
with a smile when Mary came home from the hospital. Mary had said,
It was you.
and
Fine, that's enough.
before shutting herself in her own room. After that, Kate told me,
I had warned my mother many times, but as she's aged, she's become more and more stubborn, so she wouldn't listen to me at all. I had been recording your conversations from a while ago, by hiding it in the room before you would come to visit. I'm sorry I could only do this for you.
and even apologized. But I was grateful that she had spurred her mother on to get even more evidence. It was like a scene in a movie. Personally, I know that being noisy in the hospital room and having bothered the police about something so fickle wasn't something to be proud of, but I was definitely relieved. Ever since, Kate and I have become good friends, and we stay in touch, so I'm thankful for at least that. My husband also cut ties with his mother, and Mary had
I'll never do something like this again, so forgive me.
begged for him to rethink his choice, but his dad and Kate thought it was only natural that my husband would want to keep a distance after all that. 3 years after getting married, we've finally gotten rid of any troublesome relationships, and we're currently leading very peaceful lives.
I started dating my boyfriend a few years ago. My company had a dinner party at a pub. He saw me at the pub and later contacted me through a mutual friend. I had no intentions of a relationship at the time. I had just been assigned to a new department. My mind was preoccupied with work, so I didn't have time to date. So I turned him down several times when he asked me out, but he was persistent. Finally, I agreed to go out with him once. I was hoping he would stop asking me out after one date. But after one date, he confessed his feelings to me and asked me to be his girlfriend. We went out a few more times and it was quite fun. So I thought I'd give it a shot. I agreed to date him under one condition. He accepted it right away and we started dating. He's a sweet and thoughtful guy, so I had been thinking about getting married. Almost 2 years later, he proposed to me on Christmas. I was so happy, but before I responded, I asked him if he remembered the condition he agreed to when we started dating. The condition was, my mother will move in with us after we get married. However, he denied that he had ever agreed to that. By the way, that wasn't the only condition for us to date. I also said we would move somewhere close to my mother's house after getting married. And if I feel my mother has difficulty living alone, we should let her move in with us. I knew those conditions were difficult to accept, so I wanted to make sure he knew what to expect later on. I received an inheritance after my father passed away, so I have enough savings to take care of my mother, and won't cause financial trouble for my husband. What I wanted was for him to agree to live with my mother. My mother fell down stone stairs when I was little because she tried to protect me. She had bad bone fractures and has been limping since, but she has never complained about it. She's always very positive, saying it's not a big deal as long as she can walk. My father died of illness when I was in my sophomore year of high school. My father had a life insurance policy, but my mother still worked hard to send me to college. I told my mother, I'll study hard and get a scholarship for college. But she replied, your father left us enough money, so don't worry about it. Then she added, we've been saving for your college fund. We also have enough money for our living expenses. You don't need to worry about anything. Just work hard and enjoy your university life, she said. So I always wanted to repay my mother for everything she's done for me. I promised myself I'd take good care of my mother for the rest of my life. I'd even stay single if that's what it takes. So even though I was so happy when my boyfriend proposed, I had to remind him of the conditions to which he agreed when we first started dating. When he proposed, I thought he understood how determined I was to care for my mother and had agreed to my terms. But that wasn't the case at all. He said,
I don't think it's a good idea to live with your mother. It's better to put your mother in a nursing home so we can live our own life. That way, we can both continue to work. Don't you think that's more rational?
To me, it wasn't something to decide based on rationality. Besides, it's not like my mother would move in with us right after our wedding. We can live close by and decide when to let my mother move in with us later. However, my boyfriend insisted that we put my mother in a nursing home. I explained to him that there might be times when it's problematic for my mother to live alone, but not to the degree that she would need constant care. I gradually started to feel cold toward my boyfriend. He believed the decision to care for my mother should be made entirely based on rationality. I know, it's a lot of work to care for my mother. None of us know what's going to happen in the future. What shocked me was that he never actually accepted the condition of living with my mother. It'd be understandable if I let my mother move in with us without any prior warnings. But I asked him specifically if he agreed to those terms before we started dating. I kept wondering what had gone wrong. Our fight didn't end there. Since neither of us were willing to compromise, I told him we should break up. His reaction was,
Why do we have to break up because of your mother?
And he refused to break up with me. He thought we shouldn't break up over something like this. That's why he thought he could ignore the conditions I initially imposed, and suggested that I put my mother in a nursing home. He was basically telling me to neglect my family. There's no way I could have a happy, healthy marriage with someone like him. Yet somehow, he insisted on not breaking up with me, which made me wonder. Turns out, he had already told his parents that we were engaged. He also told them we would get married in the spring. Is that why he doesn't want to break up? His parents told them to invite me over for New Year and introduce me to them.
You ruined everything! I can't.
He said furiously. But it was just his wishful thinking. Also, what makes him think he can now ignore all the conditions? Then he said,
I can't believe this! I even bought the engagement ring!
He was trying to make me look like the bad person, but he agreed to all the conditions. He forgot about or ignored those and tried to put the blame on me. I didn't want to marry him anymore. I decided not to marry him eventually, not just because of his attitude toward my mother. If I compromised and married him, similar things would happen again. We'd be fighting for similar reasons over and over again. And he'd only say whatever that's convenient to him. When that happens, he would either deny or argue with me, saying that I should listen to him. Such things are bound to happen. So I clearly told him that I was breaking up with him. However, something shocking happened a few days later. My ex-boyfriend went to my mother's house and said to her,
You're the reason I couldn't get married! I wasted so much money and made a fool of myself! I'm gonna kill you!
Then he took a knife out of his pocket. But my cousin and uncle happened to be there, so they grabbed him and called the police. My heart almost stopped when I got the call from my cousin. I had never expected my ex-boyfriend would show up at my mother's house and threaten to kill her. Of course, my cousin and my uncle were shocked too. They said in a shaky voice,
What's wrong with this guy? He's insane!
My mother didn't know I had broken up with him. Why did you turn him down? You don't need to worry about me. As long as you're happy, I'm happy. No, Mom, what are you talking about? Nothing makes me happier than being by your side. Besides, it was a good thing I didn't marry him. I didn't know he was so selfish. Then, I went to the police station and told them what had happened from the beginning. It was clear that he had intentions of hurting my mother. So that was the last time I saw him. After that, I heard from my lawyer that he was charged with attempted murder and sent to jail. My relatives were terrified and strongly suggested that my mother and I move, so we did. Before we moved, my ex-boyfriend's parents came to apologize. They said while crying,
We are so sorry for what my son has done. We know you probably will never forgive him, but please let us make amends on behalf of our son. We're so glad your mother didn't get hurt.
Then, they sent us a large sum of money as compensation. Now that I think about it, he would say anything that makes me happy to get me to go out with him. He had never taken the conditions I imposed seriously. I'm so glad I found out what kind of person he truly was before marrying him. It would be much harder to end our relationship if I didn't find out about his real personality until years later. I've had enough of men, but if I meet someone in the future, I hope it's someone who understands how much my mother means to me and is willing to take care of her. I was promoted exceptionally fast at work. Apparently, my colleagues all hated me for that. But I thought I got promoted because the upper management saw my achievements and valued my contributions. I didn't want to fail their expectations, so I worked hard despite being bullied by my colleagues. One day, at a company dinner, I finally realized why I was promoted so fast. I didn't get promoted because of my skills. Instead, I got promoted because they thought I was a safe bet. I was living with my mother, father, and grandfather at the time. My father had a stroke when I was 25 and got paralyzed from the waist down. My mother had been working while taking care of my grandfather. But after my father's stroke, my mother had to quit her job to care for my father too. So the entire household started to live on my income alone. My bosses got drunk at the company dinner and told me,
Your family needs you so much that you probably won't get married, which means you won't take maternity leave, right? The upper management kept telling us to hire more female employees. Can you imagine how annoying that is? Luckily, we have you, the perfect quarry that comes with a gift.
They kept spouting insults to my face. Indeed, I wasn't in a relationship or planning to get married anytime soon. But I couldn't forgive them for calling me a quarry and joking about my father's misfortune. I also couldn't believe that the company had never cared about my achievements at work. The colleagues who had been bullying me also learned the real reason I got promoted so quickly.
I knew her promotion was not that simple. Of course! How else would someone like her get promoted? The actual reason for her promotion is hilarious! Though, I never would have guessed.
And they all laughed at me. After that, I lost my motivation to work. As if that wasn't bad enough, my father was later killed in an accident while shopping with my mother. Before the accidents, I sometimes refused to work overtime because I had to go to my father's hospital and run other errands. But when my boss found out my father had passed away, instead of offering condolences, he seemed quite happy about it.
Does that mean you can work more hours now? Without your father holding you back, you can now work harder and make more contributions to the company. That's great news! Put your all into work, all right?
I snapped after hearing what he said. I'm done.
Huh? What? What did you just say?
I quit. To hell with this company! You used me as a human billboard to show how equal the company is. But I have to work harder than any men here. And I can't believe you called my family's misfortune good news. You think everything can be taken advantage of? I won't work for such a terrible company anymore.
But you're the star employee of our company! You can't quit!
He wasn't trying to keep me as an employee. The company just wanted to keep the good quarry for its own sake. I ignored my boss and submitted my resignation. When I was clearing my desk and packing my belongings, my boss called me over, kept me in the meeting room, and lectured me the whole day. He essentially wanted to talk me out of quitting. He tried to appeal to my emotions at first, but I replied, My family's misfortune isn't something you can take advantage of. This company is the worst. I don't care about it anymore, and I'm quitting no matter what. Then, my boss tried to brainwash me.
Men work and sacrifice themselves to support their families! Why can't you learn to do the same?
Sacrifice? How do they support their families if they sacrifice and can no longer work?
I promoted you, and this is how you repay me? How can you be so irresponsible?
I know my rights, and you don't get to tell me what to do.
Men don't quit their job over something so insignificant!
You keep talking about how great men are, but you're actually afraid your performance won't be as good if I quit. Am I right?
Excuse me? How can you be so naive? You need to learn to endure the hardship at work like men instead of quitting whenever you're unhappy!
Men can switch jobs too if they find their work unreasonable, can they? I mean, are men and women so different when it comes to quitting? Why are you trying to make everything about genders anyway? The company only had a few female employees. Maybe I was promoted because of my gender. My boss's constant talk about how men are better made me sick. And of course, my decision to quit remained unchanged. I'm quitting no matter what you say. Do you know you can get in trouble for locking me up here? My boss gritted his teeth in anger and said,
Listen, you will find another job once you quit. I know people at other companies. I'll tell everyone how incapable and arrogant you are. Nobody will ever hire you.
After saying that, he finally let me go, so I left the company. The colleagues who had been jealous of me were so happy when they heard I quit.
She's finally gone. We'll have a better work environment now.
I didn't want to tell my mother why I quit my job, but one day, she suddenly cried and said to me, "You've done so much supporting our family. I'm sorry. You should live your own life from now on." One day, I got a call from the receptionist at my previous company.
Hi, how are you doing?
I'm doing great, thanks. How about yourself?
Actually,
Then she told me the company was in deep trouble. What happened?
clients started to terminate contracts with us one after another. The new product deal also went south. All the clients who left were your clients.
My clients?
Yes, the guy who took your position had an attitude problem. He couldn't do his job at all. The clients have been asking for you because they found the new guy untrustworthy. When the clients were told you had quit, they started terminating contracts and said they would take their business elsewhere.
Really? After I got the promotion, I worked hard to bring in more clients.
My old clients referred me to other companies, and I gained their trust and made more deals. But those clients are all leaving now. Also, do you remember the new product you were working on before you left? I heard the new guy took your project over, but the clients didn't like the end product, so it was canceled.
The receptionist told me what had happened in the company after I left. Apparently, none of my former colleagues could do my job well. Resultantly, the company's business relationships with the clients fell like dominoes. The company got a bad reputation, and word spread like wildfire among client companies. I was sad when my former boss told me how worthless I was. But now, I'm happy to know my hard work was recognized and appreciated by my clients. The receptionist resigned immediately after hearing rumors that the company wasn't doing well. I see. So you quit too. You certainly are quick to get the news.
Of course, I'm good with people. What are you doing now? You're so competent at work. Maybe I can introduce you to someone.
Really? Are you sure?
Of course. It's a competitor company of our former company. They heard about you and said they're interested in meeting you. I'll talk to their HR if you're interested too.
Yes, please. Thanks a lot. Thanks to the receptionist's introduction, I got a job at the competitor company. Before long, I heard my former company had gone out of business and declared bankruptcy. As for the boss who lectured me and the colleagues who were jealous of me, they all ended up jobless. My new boss asked me why I quit my old job. So I told her how my former boss and colleagues had treated me. My former boss locked me up in the meeting room and threatened to call other companies so that I would never get hired again. He also said he'd spread rumors about how incapable and arrogant I was. I'm sure he had never thought his own name would get blacklisted from jobs. He must be struggling to find a job now, but what can I say? He deserves every bit of it.
My company has an excellent work environment. Most of my colleagues are nice and friendly, so I enjoy working here a lot. The only exception is my colleague, A. He's a real pain in the neck. By the way, I'm not alone in thinking this. Other colleagues have had the same thoughts. A always says something like, "Women should be blamed for most sexual crimes. Crimes wouldn't happen if they didn't seduce men. Men are the real victims." He believes that women should be blamed for sexual crimes. He even said to female colleagues who came to work in skirts, "Don't wear short skirts to work! Are you so desperate for attention?" That was one time when a female colleague greeted him in the hallway. He said, "Don't say hi to me with that makeup and hair of yours! Are you trying to make me take it the wrong way?" He sounded furious. To A's mind, no matter what a woman does, she's doing it to seduce men. So as a result, he thinks it's inevitable for men to give in to temptation. Whenever there was news about sexual assault, he would comment, "It's the woman's fault! I can't believe the poor guy has to take all the blame! The woman started it! Was always angry when it comes to those topics. He has criticized almost all the female employees in the company, so naturally they began to avoid him. But then he got upset and said, "Why are all the women ignoring me? Show some respect to your superior! I'm gonna fire all the other men in the office! Fire them all!" Nobody knew what he was saying. His madness didn't stop there. The HR department later got involved and asked all female employees to stay away from A.
He tends to take things the wrong way, so try to avoid saying hello or talking to him about work. Keep your distance for the time being.
So all the female employees stopped talking to A afterwards. But obviously, A wasn't happy about that at all. "I only told the truth! Men are the victims! It's all the seducer's fault!" He still didn't feel he was wrong. Soon, the upper management heard what A had been saying in the office. There was a rumor that they would soon transfer him to a department with no female employees. However, while all the female employees were excited about the rumor, A did something horrendous. Most of my colleagues would start to leave the office around 5, but I stayed back that day because I had to finish something. Besides me, A and a female colleague, C, who joined the company recently, were also working late. What is he still doing here? Go home already! I was thinking that while trying to finish my work. And then C said to me,
You're not going home, Steve?
"Not yet. I need to finish this today."
I'm gonna make some tea. Would you like some?
"Oh, sure. Thanks." So C went into the office kitchen. However, shortly after she went, a scream came from inside the kitchen. It was so loud that I nearly jumped out of my skin. Then I heard A's voice. "You burned me! What's the matter with you?" I ran into the kitchen and was shocked by what I saw. A was on top of C, trying to rip her shirt off. I understood right away what was going on. C must have spilled boiling water on A when she was resisting. A yelled, "Don't you know the water is scalding hot?" and took off his jacket and shirt. "What the hell are you doing?" I ran up to A and punched him in the face. C couldn't stop crying and shaking, so I lent her my jacket. "Are you all right?" C nodded while crying, but then A said, "It's her fault for luring me into such a small space!" I couldn't believe what I had heard. Other colleagues who were still in the office also rushed into the kitchen. "It's okay, C. He can't do anything to you now. You're safe." I tried my best to calm her down. C had only joined the company a few months ago, but she's a nice person and a very hard worker. I can't believe A would actually try to assault her. One of the colleagues who came was female. She said to C,
Come with me. Let me get you a change of clothes.
Then she took C away into the locker room. A still insisted he didn't do anything wrong. "It's all her fault! She seduced me with her makeup and skirt. She just stood there when I came to this tiny kitchen. She didn't even try to run away, so I thought it was consensual. I can't believe she threw boiling water at me! I need an ambulance! She threw boiling hot water all over me!" He kept on shouting. What he said further infuriated me, so I grabbed him by the collar and yelled at him. "Everyone knows how small the kitchen is. It's normal for two people to bump into each other. Plus, how could she leave when you were blocking her way? You intentionally made it difficult for her to escape. How can it be consensual when she cries and resists? Shut up! She wanted to seduce me all along. That's why she came to the kitchen. Bullshit! She came to the kitchen to make tea. She wasn't hinting anything to you." Other colleagues nodded in agreement. A finally became quiet. I reported the incident to my boss right away. A then went to get treatment at the hospital by himself. He was covered in bandages all over his body for the scalds. Later, C reported A to the police, and A was arrested when he got out of the hospital. A said to the police, "Why am I getting arrested? I got burned because of that woman! Arrest her!" But my colleagues and I all testified for C, so the police didn't believe A at all. A was married and got the job through connections. After the incident, his wife divorced him right away, and he lost his job. He also has to pay his wife and C a hefty compensation. I worry that C might develop PTSD after the incident, but maybe because I arrived in time to stop A, C was recovering faster than I thought. C came to thank me a few days later.
Thank you for helping me the other day.
"No, don't thank me. That probably wouldn't have happened if I didn't ask for tea. I'm sorry."
It's not your fault. I was gonna make tea anyway. Can I treat you to dinner sometime? You know, to say thank you.
Oh, you don't have to. I didn't do anything.
Please, let me treat you to dinner.
So we went out for dinner together. At the dinner, C blushed and said to me,
Actually, I've always liked you.
she talked about how terrified she was when A tried to assault her. Then she told me she was happy when I showed up and helped her. So she decided to be brave and confess her feelings to me. I was both surprised and happy when I heard her say that. I think we should give it a try. So we started dating. Luckily, our company doesn't forbid workplace dating. So we told our colleagues about the news and everyone was happy for us. Since my colleagues know about what happened to C, they came to me and said, "You'll always protect her, right?"
Don't ever make her sad.
They're all very supportive of our relationship. C and I got engaged a few years later. Rumor has it that A couldn't find a job after he got fired. Now he's working at a cleaning company and lives alone in a shabby apartment. When A got fired, he boasted about how good he was. "Other companies will fight over me. That's how popular I am. It's this company's loss that they fired me." He obviously overrated himself. He got this job because of his ex-wife's connections. It certainly didn't mean he was talented in any way. Plus, he's now blacklisted from jobs due to the incident. He initially found a job at a small company. It was already the best option for him. But he got fired shortly after because the rumors about him started to spread, and the female employees felt uncomfortable working with him. Now he probably doesn't have the luxury to think about who should be blamed for sexual assaults anymore. He's now being punished for looking at women pervertedly and blaming women for everything. I think all the punishments he got are well deserved.
Even though my husband and I are both working, our financial situation is really tight. We still don't have any children, but even if I wanted kids, we can't have them. That's because my husband has been giving his parents money ever since we married. As a result, I can't resign from work, and I can't prepare an environment in which to have children without any worry. My husband is always all over his parents.
I'm going to my parents' house. See ya!
Again? You went yesterday and the day before yesterday.
Don't talk like it's such a bad thing that I go to see them on a regular basis.
It's true that it's a good thing to go see your parents' face once in a while, but I feel that my husband is too much. Furthermore, he's too soft on them. The reason why we don't have financial security, even though we're both working, is because most of our money goes to paying off his parents' loan for their 3-bedroom house and their electricity and gas. Of course, in the beginning, I made it clear that I didn't want to, but
Mom and Dad have both retired, so we've got to support them.
he was adamant that we supported them. But being in their 50s, it was a pretty early retirement, and they're currently unemployed. They were still working when we first got married, but when we came home from our honeymoon, they were jobless. I thought it would be okay since they must have pensions, but my husband suddenly announced,
I've decided that we'll pay my mom and dad's loan. And for their electricity and stuff.
just like that. At first, I had no idea what he was going on about. Why do we have to support them? Your dad has a pension, right?
Oh, that's all gone. Their dream was to go on a trip around the world. They fulfilled it, so the pension is all gone.
Huh? That's ridiculous! Why do we have to pay just because they spent all of their pension? I had heard that they planned to go on a trip after retirement, but I expected that they would keep some money aside to live on after they came back. I was shocked. I had never met anybody so irresponsible. But my husband said,
Mom and Dad need our help. We've got to support them.
No way, it's their own fault. Why should I pay for their mistakes? That's what I had thought, but the following month, my husband started giving all of his pay to his parents. Because they weren't my own parents, I couldn't speak out as strongly and try to be as considerate as possible. I asked my husband, hey, are your parents planning to find new jobs soon?
We can survive on just your income. We've got to treat our parents with care.
Our parents? Then how about you do something for my parents? My parents are 10 years older than your parents are.
What are you talking about? You married into my family, so of course you've got to prioritize my parents.
It was unbelievable. I had finally seen his true colors and I regretted marrying him. I was still bothered about having married him when Matthew told me he had quit too.
My boss was way too useless, so I told him off for it. And I was fired.
What? How are you so calm? You gotta find another job.
Shut up! I'm thinking. Can't you at least cheer your own husband up?
He got angry with me, as though I had done something wrong and left for his parents' house. I called Matthew's office and asked him about my husband being fired. Excuse me, I'm Matthew's wife. I'd like to ask the reason behind his being fired.
Oh, Matthew's wife? He had been skipping work to go to a local casino. He was fired when that was found out by his direct manager.
What? Matthew had even lied about the reason for losing his job, but after going out to his parents', he didn't come back. But he still demanded that I continued to pay. I was basically taking care of him and his parents. Of course, my wages weren't enough to pay for everything, so I had to take out some money from the savings I had saved from when I was still single. Even then, my husband's family,
Oh, Susie, we felt like eating sushi and ordered delivery, but we sent the bill to yours. So make sure you pay it, okay?
would suddenly tell me things like this.
My husband wants to start golf, so we ordered a full set. You have to pay for it when it arrives at yours tonight. I think it's around $250. Let us know when it comes. We'll send Matthew to go get it. How about you use that as a chance to apologize to Matthew? If you apologize, we'll forgive you for your horrible attitude towards us.
And this. I didn't understand why I was the one that had to apologize, when I was the one desperately paying for the luxuries and stupid impulse buys out of my own savings. I finally began to feel stupid myself. Why do I have to suffer like this? No matter how you look at it, they're the ones in the wrong. So I decided to quit my job too. Without telling them that I had quit my job, my savings were used up. I went to visit my husband and his family. My savings are all gone. What shall we do?
Don't lie. We were doing fine until now.
That was because I was using my savings. When they saw my bank statements, the three of them went pale.
You're kidding. You only got less than $100 left?
I was paying for the loan for this house and electricity and gas. Of course I had to pay for my own daily needs. Did you really think my income would be enough? I then handed over a thick slab of envelopes. The contents were all the same. Dunning letters. These are all Dunning letters.
This many?
If you're at home all the time, then it's only natural it costs this much.
We can't pay this much. Susie, you've got to do something.
About that, I've lost my job. I'm currently unemployed.
What?
Stop lying! You just don't want to give us your money. I can check, you know.
Go ahead and call them.
Are you Susie's husband? Because of Susie, we lost a lot of profits. We'd like to pay you compensation in her stead.
Huh? Compensation? Oh, I've made a mistake. Wrong number. Pardon me.
My husband panicked and ended the phone call.
What's the meaning of this?
I made a little mistake at work. I was told to pay compensation.
This useless woman is no good for Matthew.
That's right. I want a divorce. Let's go to the town hall.
Like this, my husband and I got a divorce. Just like I had planned. I was free of that family and went straight back to my office. When my colleague caught sight of me, she called out to me with a smile.
How did it go? I hope it went well.
Yes, it did.
Congrats. Here you go. Here's your pension and the letter of recommendation for the child company. This is a present from everyone in the office.
Are you sure? You helped me so much already. My colleagues had seen my expression when I had announced my resignation, and had figured out that something was wrong. They cooperated to saving Matthew for me. Thank you very much. I don't know how I can repay you.
Susie, take care of yourself. No matter what, we're on your side.
Thank you, everyone. You've all done so much for me. So, I went back to my parents' house, single and free. Of course, I had been talking to them about my situation from earlier on, so they welcomed me with open arms. With a letter of recommendation, I got a job at another company and was building up my savings again when I got a phone call from my ex-husband. It seems that the loan on the house had been left unpaid for some time, so it was taken away from them. The three of them were living in an apartment, but they still had other debts to pay. My ex-husband's parents were finding it difficult to find new jobs, and my ex-husband, who had been trying to pay for everything alone, had felt the pressure and called me for help.
Help me. If you're living with your parents, then you must be saving a lot of money, right? I'm gonna go bankrupt.
What? We got divorced, didn't we? On top of that, you were the one that asked for it.
That was because you said you had a debt to pay. The other day, I met one of your colleagues who said they didn't remember saying anything like that.
Oh, I don't remember that. Either way, it has nothing to do with me, so feel free to go bankrupt. I'm enjoying my work and private life, so I don't have the time to be dealing with you. When I said that, my ex gave out a loud cry, but I couldn't care less. After that, I heard a rumor that my ex-husband couldn't pay off all of the debt and the daily necessities by himself, so his parents finally started working again. But because of their age, they were made fun of and laughed at by their younger colleagues, and seemed to be leading pretty pathetic lives. They still spend like crazy though, so are stuck in debt hell. They should get a taste of their own medicine, since I was made to suffer like that when I was still married.
He and I were both born in the countryside. We met in Tokyo and started dating, so we were a bit informed of each other's families for a while. We got engaged not so long ago, and today, when we were going to pay his parents a visit, he talked about many things regarding his family in the car. If I remember right, you have a sister that's 3 years younger than you, right? Will she be here today?
Yeah, my sister lives at home. She had a baby pretty quickly and raised a fatherless family.
Is that so? And how old is her child?
She had her child in high school, so I'm pretty sure he's around 5 years old.
During high school? That's somehow amazing. It must have been hard.
Yeah, her partner ran away from the situation, but she dropped out to bear her baby nonetheless.
I see. Well then, how about we buy something delicious for the young one? There's a snack shop if we turn this corner, right?
Want to try stopping there?
Yeah, please.
Thanks a lot. I'm sure they'll be very happy.
I've loved young children for a very long time, so I was excited to meet his younger sister's son. How is he?
It's been a while since I've went back home, too. He grows so fast. I have no idea what kind of child he's become.
I see. Then this is exciting for the both of us. We headed for my in-laws' home as we talked lively. After we arrived, the meetup with my in-laws was going by without anything amiss.
And this buckaroo here, too. Getting married. Can't wait to see the faces of my grandchildren.
We aren't even married yet. You're going too fast.
We were chatting in this way, lively and harmonious, when his younger sister came home. Oh, is she back? I'm back! In walked his younger sister and her son by the name of C, but I couldn't believe my ears when I heard what C said just afterwards.
Dad, welcome home!
He ran towards my fiancé and said this with the biggest smile on his face. Huh? Dad? That one word not only stopped us dead in our tracks, but also his own parents. However, paying no attention to the icy atmosphere,
Dad, are you done with work? Are you taking the day off tomorrow?
asked questions in rapid succession. And just as we thought she'd correct him, my fiancé's younger sister smiled at her son and said, "It's so nice your daddy came home." I'd never thought about him betraying me, so I became increasingly confused about the whole thing.
Hang on a second. What's all this about me being dad?
What? I told him that you're his father. It's just that it's so sad that he doesn't have a father, right? So I'm having you continue to act out the part of his father.
What the hell? That's so freaking stupid!
That alone was enough to surprise us. But then his sister said something even more inconceivable. And today, I thought I should really teach your future wife about this child, so he came home from kindergarten early. He is so smart, and he's going to a medical institute in the future. So I'm asking you and your wife to remain childless, okay? Because you're supposed to pay for his school fees, right? His sister forcefully gabbed on and on. There was literally no time to interrupt her. Wait, is this sweetheart for real? With all this extraordinary dialogue, my brain was filled to the rim with countless question marks. But his sister paid no attention to that and went on rambling, on and on. My job is going to be raising him, so anything about money and about participating in school events will be your job, okay? Do your job well, all right? Oh, and med school will cost money too, so the missus will have to stock up too.
Enough with this stupid nonsense! What the hell is wrong with you? There's no freaking way we're gonna do all that! And don't you think it's ridiculous to bring Tsukabe into this?
What? You're his father, big bro, and I'll be upset if your wife doesn't help us out. Reason doesn't seem to be an option whatsoever anymore, and we were struggling to find something to say when their parents spoke up. But even then, I couldn't believe what I heard.
Now, I'm sure that shouldn't be a problem. It will be hard for this child if he goes on living his life without a father, right?
The hell?
I agree. And you're going to be a part of this family, so we all gotta work together. For some reason, they're firing cannonballs in our direction from the sister's side. This situation, where not only his sister but also his parents were saying the strangest things, made me dizzy. Do we really have to pay for this child? What does she mean, don't have children? You've got to be kidding me!
And what are you saying? Mom! Dad! I can't make her do this! And even for me! This is just insane!
Your sister's working hard to raise her son, you know.
You know that was her own decision to make! Stop pushing this onto us! Why the hell am I playing the part of the father like it's so obvious? Don't you think it's strange that a sibling is playing the part of a parent?
Whether he was surprised by this outburst, I don't know, but C strode to him crying. Dad, what's wrong? He crouched down to meet him at the same height and said,
I'm not your dad, buddy. I'm the older brother of your mother.
C, for an instant, stood motionless, but the waterworks turned back on in a flash. But Dad is my daddy, right? Hey, stop talking nonsense to my son! You call yourself a human being so cruel to a child so young.
You didn't think about how broken he would be if you lied to him? And you knew I was gonna get married soon!
That's why I'm telling all this to your wife, too. Oh, what a bitch, discriminating my child like you are.
Who are you calling a bitch? Pushing me to be the father without my consent and asking me for money? And about telling us not to have any children? What makes you think you have the right to decide that? Frickin' bearing a child and forcing all of this on us? Go to hell!
You go to hell!
Don't you dare! And I now know the truth about you two, too. I forbid you to have anything to do with us until doomsday! Come on, Tsukabe. We're leaving. It's no use talking reason to these stupid blockheads.
Yeah. He started to get ready to go. Now, just wait a minute.
That's right! This isn't over!
Anything like this would go down when we were headed there, but I was concerned that he would eventually come to accept everything his sister said. That's why I was relieved when he said he was going to break ties with my in-laws. Afterwards, he legally broke ties with his parents, and he took on my family name. I was a single child, so my parents were okay with it. Or rather, they were very happy. During the first few years, his parents would pester us, and his sister would demand child support, nagging to deposit money because he was going into elementary school, but we blocked all of those. And after we moved, all of that stopped, and we finally started to live happy. According to his other relatives, his sister isn't even working and is using her parents' pension as her son's education fees. It isn't a problem to have high expectations for your child, but it costs a lot of money to become a doctor, and she's just lying around at home. So I think it isn't going to go as planned. And while I would be sympathetic if C really had talent, but when I asked about his grades to his relatives... His grades? Perpetual single figures. He hates studying, and he's always out playing. It's fine to hope for the best for your child, but at least make an effort to make it happen. B. His sister had planned to use her son as leverage to siphon money from us. When it came to cram school or paying for education, she must have thought that she could get however much money she wanted. Later, she wouldn't change, and depending on her parents, it's no longer enough. They say she's in debt now. Well, no work and all play makes her a poor girl. Money's bound to run out one day. More to the point, it's mind-boggling how she could possibly think a ridiculous reason like that could get her the money she needs. Now, about us. After that, we were living close to my home, and we learned of me being pregnant. As a form of celebrating, we decided to build a house. But the deposits were all done by my dear parents. It seems they were really grateful and happy for him changing his name to theirs. What should have been an occasion to form bonds with his family, I didn't expect would turn into breaking bonds with them. But with this new life that's about to be born, I'm confident we can lead a happy life, the three of us.
This is when my friend Mr. A had come over to hang out. Mr. A, my wife, aka C, and I were good friends since middle school. We spent lots of time together. That hadn't changed since I married C, and he married another woman. On this day, my wife also had the day off, so we were playing games together as we always did. But then C said,
"Oh, it's time to go out to get some things to make dinner."
She left midway to go do some shopping. Is it that time already? I'll see you soon. Immediately after she left the house, Mr. A said,
She smells so nice, huh?
Really? I'm with her so often I don't even notice.
It's such a sweet woman-like scent.
Okay. He was saying some suspicious things like this, so I just simply let that slide. Then he stood up and said, "Bathroom!" Strode away. However, he doesn't come back even after half an hour. Huh? Did he leave? But who leaves without saying anything? I went to check on him in the bathroom as I was thinking to myself, and on the way, my wife just opened the door.
I'm home. Wait a sec. Did dear Mr. A leave?
No, he just hasn't come back from the bathroom.
Does he have a stomach ache or something?
She put down the groceries and made for her bedroom. I went to the bathroom, but Mr. A was not there. He's not in the bathroom. Where the heck did he go? Maybe he really did leave. I was thinking this to myself when I heard my wife scream from her bedroom. So, surprised, I ran to her aid. "What is it, honey?"
In the closet!
I peered in the direction she was pointing in, and I saw Mr. A naked with a pair of my wife's underwear on his head. For a split second, I froze, not knowing what to do about what I was witnessing. "You! What are you doing?" No! It's not what you think! What's there to think about? Dude, what the actual frick are you doing? Mr. A tried to convince us this was just a mistake, but maybe my words had an influence on him. "I couldn't help it! Your wife just smells so good!" As he says this, Mr. A brought a pair of panties to his nose and started to breathe deeply. "See? If I do this, I can smell the deeper scent. The deeper scent is the true scent of your wife."
Stop this!
How dare you! On someone else's wife! I tried to swipe the underwear away from him. He tightened his grip and refused to let go. "Originally, I wanted your wife, but you stole her from me. So why not let me have the scent of her at least?" The frick? What's with all that bullshit? In any case, you yourself have a wife! Yeah, I do, but C is something special. Why do you think I stop by so often? Obviously because I want to smell her to my heart's content. He started to bring the underwear back onto his nose as he said so, and it was my wife who snatched it away.
Stop this!
Perhaps that pissed him off because Mr. A stood up and slapped her hard with an expression of fury on his face. She froze after being hit. I also froze because my own wife was beaten. "This never would have happened if you'd just been together with me! The hell? Looking at me as though I'm a pervert? I'm disgusted by this! I'm going home!" Mr. A was putting his clothes back on and leaving as though nothing had happened. "You frickin' bastard! I'll frickin' kill you, goddammit!" I punched him with all my might and fury and he went sprawling. "The frick you mean as though I'm a pervert? You're quite the pervert already if you put someone's wife's underwear on your head! You goddamn asshole! Don't you frickin' dare make her responsible for all this!" My blood was literally boiling. Towards the middle, even I had no idea what I was saying. Maybe seeing me in this unstoppable state of fury made him scared for his life. He tried running for it out of the closet, so I instantly grabbed his arm, threw him to the floor, and held him motionless there. What are you doing to me? Shut the hell up! Don't think you can get away with this, huh? See? Get me my cell phone.
Got it.
What are you gonna do? Huh? Isn't it obvious? I'm gonna get your wife to get over here. Wait! She has no part in this, right? If she finds out again, she's divorcing me for real this time. This time? Nah, bullshit, she's got no part in this. She's your wife, goddammit! Last time, I only smelled the underwear of some girl I didn't know who lives in the same neighborhood. Dude, this is 1000% a crime. We're friends, right? Please, forget about all this time, please! The hell? Friends, are we? Someone doing the perverted thing and smelling my wife's underwear and also slapped her is no friend of mine. I don't care if the feds get you. Please, no! Then I'll give you a choice. At these words, I could see that the fright in his eyes was dying away. So I decided to make him pale once again. 1. Discuss what to do with your wife about her husband never committing perverted acts to anyone ever again. 2. Negotiate your social sanctions with the police. You know I can't decide between those. Oh, is that so? Then I'll decide for you. Mr. A, thinking shit and giving up on something, probably realized that nothing he could say would make me forgive him and said quietly, "I choose the first choice." I soon called Mr. A's wife, explaining the situation to her and asking her to come on over. His wife, upon arrival, started to strike him, drag him everywhere, and his face got covered with cuts and scrapes. Oh, please stop! His wife said to us,
You think you're in a position to say such nonsense? Unbelievable.
As she hung her head and bowed.
I'm terribly sorry about all this. If only I'd realized sooner.
She then took Mr. A by the ear and left the house. My wife lost all strength in her lower body and crumpled to the floor, probably in relief. I agree completely.
How could dear Mr. A be such a monster?
I'm sorry, honey. I caused you harm by bringing him into this house. Of course, the act of smelling my wife's underwear was already inexcusable. But what was even more diabolical was him slapping the shit out of her. With such a selfish reason, no less. Let's get you to the hospital.
I'm all right. It was just a slap.
You just suffered a slap that had the full strength of a man. Your cheek is getting red, you know that, right? I was really worried, so we got her checked at the hospital, and bless the skies, she seemed all right. Later on, Mr. A told me the story that right after my wife had left, he pretended to go to the bathroom, instead went to her bedroom, and was looking for her underwear. It was around then that she came back and quickly hid in the closet, hoping the coast would get clear eventually. Mr. A and his wife got into an argument after they went back home, and she called the police. Conclusively, he was arrested, and apparently is to be divorced with his wife. His ex-wife now plans to demand big-time compensation, and even went to my wife saying,
You also have the right to demand compensation.
We decided to demand as well, and we were paid the price that was established. Was this event the catalyst? I can't say for sure, but it did take for the two ladies to become close friends afterwards. A few years had passed, and my wife and I were blessed with a beautiful little girl. The connections between my wife and the ex had never wavered, of course, and she later remarried with a kindly-looking man, and is living happily ever after. About Mr. A, when he was arrested, the crime became a thing in the news, and a bunch of old friends contacted for details. My wife and I explained what happened to no one but our friends. The event spread like wildfire among them, and Mr. A earned himself the new nickname of the DV Panty Perv, and was cut off by me, of course, and also by everyone. Mr. A, thinking it best not to interact with us anymore, apparently moved to another city, but got arrested after stealing, what else, some underwear. Years went by, and our daughter grew up quick and strong. One day, when she was probably in high school, her mother was bringing her laundry up to her room. But she didn't come back after a while, so I went to check in on them, and found my wife looking at her with a hard expression saying,
Got it? You hide your underwear in the deepest parts of your chest of drawers, you understand? What's wrong, Mom? You look scary. Never mind. Just do what your mother tells you. Just hide your underwear, all right?
That's what she was telling her. Even this, right here, is a lesson to learn. Is what I thought deep in my heart as I heard her say these words.
How was today's video? If you enjoyed it, please subscribe, like, and leave a comment. Stay tuned for more.